Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, roll up, because today we take a trip to the circus. With our next musical, we've got one that's full of joy, light, and one of my favourite quotes, which is, "The most noble art form is that of making others happy," by none other than Phineas T. Barnum. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Next up for our episode of The Magic of the Musical, we focus on The Greatest Showman, which is a film of romance, deception, and some incredible skill. I apologise if I feel a bit bunged up, because... Wait, no, word's wrong. I apologise if I sound a bit bunged up, because I feel a bit bunged up. But, oh well, we live, we laugh, we love, we learn, we move on. Diving straight in, we start the film in a circus tent with the main song, the popular song, which is, of course, The Greatest Show.
Tell me, do you want to go where it's covered in all the colored lights, where the runaways are running the night, impossible comes true, it's taking over you.
Oh, this is the greatest show.
We light it up, we won't come down,
And the sun gets stop us now.
watching it come true, it's taking over you.
This is the greatest show.
We can assume that this choreography has been rehearsed and perfected. However, the use of loudspeakers wasn't termed for commercial usage until 1924, and since the film is based in the 1840s to the 1880s, we've got to look at the musical instruments and decide if it seems viable to have been played by a band in the circus itself. So, to start off, we've got feet stomping, which seems definitely viable to me. Then we've got trumpets. Yeah, that seems perfectly viable, very loud. They can reach over a great big tent. And finally, we've got drum kits. Now, these are interesting because most drums in the 1880s were around as a sort of marching band drum. And the first drum kit itself was actually made in the 1920s, probably after World War One. This does throw a spanner in the works a little bit, but the creative mind that made this circus of Phineas T. Barnum, I reckon I wouldn't put it past him to have literally created a drum kit, or, knowing his choice of people in the circus, he might have hired some eccentric drummer or eccentric inventor that's got hair sticking out like his head at 90-degree angles, and that's probably just on the edges of society. I choose to believe that this is my answer because musicians played in circuses above the entrance, so it's perfectly reasonable that they would have live musicians there. I'd also like to point out that at this time there was a lot of segregation between people of colour and white musicians. And in circuses especially, they would have an entirely separate platform for musicians of colour. However, I'm going to give Mr. Barnum the benefit of the doubt here and say that since he had acrobats of colour and he was fine with that, he probably wouldn't have segregated musicians, and anyone who didn't like that were told they could just suck it up. I'm going to hope that that's what happened, because I'd like to keep the film nice and happy. So this concludes our opening number, so let's move on to our next song, where we get A Million Dreams.
'Cause every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me awake. I think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see. A million dreams is all it's gonna take. Oh, a million dreams for the world we're gonna make.
A Million Dreams is quite simple. It's a time-passing song because he goes from a 12-year-old to a, I don't know, 25, maybe 30-year-old. So yeah, I think it's safe to chalk this down to an editing over an epic, not really training montage. Swiftly moving on, we come to the song that is not the opening song, but the song that opens the show within the show on the opening night. Are you following me? Probably not. Oh well. So I'm of course talking about the song Come Alive. This song is choreographed the way that the Greatest Show was, using the same instruments, the drums, the cymbals, the hands, the feet. However, there's one anomaly in this song. At the very start, we see Phineas, our main man, clicking his fingers and singing under his breath like a little bit of a lunatic while dramatic music plays.
Stumble through your days, got your head hung low, your sky's a shade of grey, like a zombie enemy.
The dramatic music is played by, I think, trumpets, potentially strings, but I'm going to go with trumpets because strings weren't often used in the circus because they aren't loud enough. So I reckon the trumpets are getting warmed up. Reason being, this is my video and I say so. I also reckon that Phineas spoke to the people who released the banners when they rolled down, which I will probably have a clip of around about here. I reckon he scheduled them to release the banners when he snapped his fingers for the main reason of social anxiety fears him and he's just a little drama queen like that, you know what I mean? We now move on to one of my personal favourites, but it's a different type of song. It's still fast-paced and dramatic, but it uses very different instruments. It does still have that deep, punchy bass line, but it uses string instruments, which seems to be a sort of acoustic guitar. Now, this might seem bizarre, but in a big circus tent, guitars simply weren't loud enough. There's a reason that brass instruments are at the back of an orchestra and string instruments are not, and it's because brass instruments are really loud. There seems to be an acoustic guitar here because it's in a bar and they can play that. However, when I was watching the video itself, we realised that we can see every single corner of the room that they're in, every single part of the bar, and there is a piano which is used for live music, as that would have been the norm in the 1860s to 1880s, but there's no musicians playing in the corner, there's no little stage or anything. So despite the bar seeming quite classy, it was clearly not rush hour because there were two people in there doing shots. And I think this song is best placed in our time skip / montage category, since it blends very seamlessly into the next scene later on in the song.
Don't you wanna get away to a whole new party gonna play? 'Cause I got what you need, so come with me and take the ride to the other side. So if you do like I do, so if you do like me, forget the cage, 'cause we know how to make the key. Oh, damn, suddenly we're free to fly. We're going to the other side. So if you do like I do, to the other side. So if you do like I do, to the other side. 'Cause if we do, we're going to the other side. We're going to the other side.
And on a side note, can we appreciate this bartender? He's incredible at his job and he's got the most fabulous moustache. What an incredible man he is.
To leave that up to you. Don't you know?
Up next, we've got the Swedish Nightingale herself with her song Never Enough.
Towns of gold are still too little. These hands could hold the world, but it'll never be enough. Never be enough. For me
Now, this song is really easy. It's performed on stage with, as Mr. Barnum says, the finest orchestra. That literally wraps the whole thing up. It's a live orchestra with a live singer. Moving on. We have the power song, which is sung by the circus actors when Barnum tries to hide them out of shame. Now, this song begins in the back room of a bar or a reception hall. And this is, of course, This Is Me.
This is me.
Another round of bullets hits my skin. But fire away, 'cause today I won't let this shit sink in. We are bursting through the barricades, reaching for the sun. We are warriors. Yeah, that's what we become.
It's a very, very popular song. It certainly was when it came out anyway. Now, they move from the bar / back room of a reception hall into the large reception hall with lots and lots of people dressed in very, very fancy clothing. And then after that, they basically breeze through like those people aren't really relevant because, let's be real, they're just the audience. They're not that relevant in the show. They just bring the money. And then finally, they go out to face the riots, which raises some questions because the people who the riots are wanting to protect are against the riots. But you don't think too hard about it. It's a film. Because I definitely don't think too hard about it. Now, the choreography is something that I reckon they probably just had rehearsed for a rinse and repeat session. They just gone, okay, we're going to use choreography number 4, let's say. And they just all knew what they're doing. They just did that. Banging, absolutely lovely. That's just their job. That's what they do every second of every day when they're working. So, yeah. Now, the musicians and the actors in a circus would likely live together in similar caravans. They'd probably eat together, so they'd become friends. And in solidarity of each other's issues, I would reckon that the musicians would likely keep their instruments at hand because they had a show soon. And in solidarity of their friends, they chose to pick a song that they could play and just began playing it because that's also their job. They just sit at the back, play some music to make things more dramatic because, let's be real, it does not have the same effect if you take the music away from it, because then she's just shouting song lyrics like a lunatic, which is quite funny, but it's not really got the same vibe, you know what I mean? Now, there is evidence to support this, because at the end of the song, we see them all doing this in the circus arena, and that suggests that the song was already a performance, or after the storming out of the bar, Barnum was like, wow guys, you did really well with that, let's put that in the show.
When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send a flood, gonna drown them out. This is brave, this is bruised, this is who I'm meant to be, this is me.
So, yeah, that's that. It was all rehearsed, all done before, definitely. Now let's skedaddle onto a song that's not directly related to P.T. Barnum, but to his partner in arms, Philip Carlyle. This song actually begins with no music. However, it seems to have been done just after an acrobatics practice, as we see with the ropes being strung up and the actor who's Zendaya, I can't remember what her name is, I'll be honest, in the actual film, but Zendaya is going around untying some of the ropes, so we can assume she's just practiced her acrobatic stuff. And it's fair to assume that there was some music and lighting involved in said practice because there were spotlights and whatnot going on. And if we've learned anything about these musicians, it's that they are fans of drama. So, of course, if there's a song beginning and being improvised no less, they're going to play some dramatic music. Why on earth wouldn't they? Evidence to suggest this is that the lighting technicians were, of course, doing the same thing. There were spotlights. That wasn't a thing in the 1880s. I'm assuming this is now taking place in the 1880s because the invention of the light bulb by Edison in 1879 suggests that that's the easiest way that they could have moving lights and lots of them. Because if you don't know, gas lights and oil lamps are very, very flammable. You know what else is quite flammable? A tent. Next up on the agenda, we have the song Tightrope, not sung by Barnum again, but by his wife.
Hand in my hand and you promised to never let go. We're walking a tightrope high in the sky. We can see the whole world down below. We're walking a tightrope, never sure where you catch me if I should fall.
She essentially just sings about her husband is a bit naff and he's not very good at being a partner or a father. But, you know, she still loves him because he's not doing it out of malice. He's just got his priorities a bit wonky. And as much as it would be cool to have this performed on an actual tightrope, the thing itself isn't even featured once in the clip, which entertains me. So I think this one is just a clip of the director going, "Hello, my name is Mr. Director, and I have whacked a song here, so don't think too hard about it." And we will do just that and not think too hard about it. Finally, we have the song From Now On, which is back to where we have Phineas Barnum, and he realises that he's been a bit of a doofus to those who actually care about him, and he makes it all better via the questionable vessel of alcohol in a bar.
These eyes will not be blinded by the lights. Let's wait until tomorrow starts. Tonight, it starts tonight. Let this promise in me start. I get it from in my heart. And we will come back home. We will come back home, home again. We will come back home, and we will come back home, home again.
This song begins with a bit of piano music, and as we saw earlier, the bar that they're in has a piano in, so we can assume that one of the musicians can play piano, which is great. And then after this, we get an accordion coming in, very portable instrument. The accordion is probably just in someone's bag, and he was like, "Oh, we've got a song starting, better get out my accordion for the dramatic music." And then I reckon I don't reckon, there is now a banjo coming in, and that is fabulous. I'd expect that he's done the same thing as the accordion. They've looked at each other across the room, they've gone, "I know what you're doing, I know what you're doing, let's get our instruments out." But of course, the banjo needs to be tuned a bit, which is why it came in a little bit later, of course. They were played by their wonderful circus musicians with their love of drama, and there's nothing like a little bit of day drinking to get the spirits up, so I hear. And unlike a line from this opening song, "My glitter will never fade."
A man learns who is there for him when the glitter fades and the walls won't hold.
Which is why I will be back to my regular Minecraft content next week. So I hope you have enjoyed this video, because there won't be another one like this until the last Sunday of next month, which is April. I don't know how many weeks that is, I've not checked, and I don't plan to until the week of. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it all. Thank you very much for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe and comment, and I will see you next week with Minecraft. Bye!